Modern slavery, what Jeff Bezos is doing. We are the new serfs.
We looked at what the core values were of the brand. In Disney's case, it's things like inclusion and universal appeal. It's good over evil. It's the value of good work. It's the value of treating people well.
I need to apply for food stamp because I don't have food sometimes in the table.
In the last 5 years, I've been evicted 3 times. I eat 1 meal a day just to survive.
I did work many days that were 15, 16 hours, and I had that mini stroke after 1 year.
I'm very proud of our working conditions.
Many times we work 2 weeks straight without a day off. We're leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning, coming home at 9, 10 o'clock in the evening. That was my reality at Amazon. I am fully convinced that the success of Amazon is actually created by the sheer terror pushing people to the extreme.
We had revenue growth of almost 6%. It's evidence to us that the investments we're making in our product and our people are working.
I know people that eat ramen noodles weeks at a time because they can't afford food.
I also have to live off of food stamps. I look at my coworkers and we're all struggling.
I almost felt like it was a huge prison cell because there were just little tiny windows that I could see the sun out of. It made me realize no matter what job I had in the future, it would never be as bad as working at Amazon.
One of my favorite things about working at Walmart is the opportunity to make a difference in the world. And the size of the company gives us the opportunity as leaders to make the world a better place.
Walmart said Thursday it's closing more than 60 Sam's Club stores nationwide and laying off thousands of workers.
Labor unions are nothing but blood-sucking parasites.
When I started working at Walmart, I was only making $8.30. I was receiving Section 8, food stamps, Medi-Cal.
We just had a great quarter overall as a company led by the studio and Parks and Resorts.
I had to move my 16-year-old daughter out of the house. I can no longer afford to take care of her.
We've now had 11 quarters of growth. The market's reacted very generously to us over the last 3 years.
My CEO makes over $9,000 an hour while I struggle.
Disney is quite special. We create joy and wonder in the world, inspiring dreams and capturing the imagination of millions and millions of people.
Disney prides itself on the fact that it's a place where dreams come true. Well, Disney, where's my dream?
Thank all of you here in the nation's capital for being with us this evening. Let me thank the many people who are watching this on live stream, and let me especially thank our co-conspirators, if you like, on this effort, the Young Turks, Now This, The Guardian, Attention, Free Speech TV, Credo, Move On, The Nation, and Good Jobs Nation. Thank you all very much. What we're doing tonight, I don't think has ever been done on television before. And that is talk about the reality of life for tens and tens of millions of workers who every single day in the wealthiest country in the history of the world are struggling to put food on the table for their kids, are struggling to pay their rent, struggling to deal with childcare and the other basic necessities of life. Now, we hear every single day from the president and everybody else that the economy is booming, that it's doing just great. And the fact is that unemployment is reasonably low. But the other truth is that real wages for the average American worker continue to decline. And all over this country, people are working not just one job, but 2 jobs and 3 jobs to put food on the table. We got 30 million people who have no health insurance and even more who are underinsured. We have some 40% of our population who, if they experience a $400 emergency, the car breaks down, their kid gets sick, they don't have enough money in their pockets to pay those bills. They got to borrow that money in order to deal with that emergency. Meanwhile, while
Well, that was this is a live feed from Act TV, and it's already interrupted. I'm sure what's going on here. I'll try to find it from a different place, but you can go to facebook.com/Senator Sanders. You can find this on Senator Sanders YouTube. You can find this on DYT. It's everywhere. I'm just restreaming it so we can hang out and have a chat, but it looks like this one's already froze. I'm guessing a lot of people are watching this right now. We'll see if we can't get it back for you. Sorry about that, everybody.
Emergency. Meanwhile, while...
There we go. Nope. All right. Well, I'll see if I can't pull this up somewhere else. We know how this goes, everybody. Thank you for being here. I do have a We the People tonight at 7 after this. Oh, the whole thing is down? William Valentine? Wow. Wow. Who do you think made that happen? Who do you think made that happen? Who do you think owns these cloud servers? You know? Imagine that. Who said, you know, we just make sure we can't handle that peak. That's corporate control of the internet, everybody. TYT is out. Holy shit. Wow. That's interesting, everybody. All right. Yeah, no kidding, Christopher. No kidding.
Million.
Wow. All right, I'm going to see if I can't find this elsewhere. You guys let me know in chat if you see it somewhere else where it's actually running. And I'll be right back. I'm looking at yeah, hey Jilly Love, hey everybody. Yeah, real jingy. Yay, capitalism. I've got the Senator Sanders video up. It's frozen. Everybody's frozen, so just hanging out. It's like the old days. Hasn't changed. Yeah, thanks Russia. Russia did this too. All right, so I just checked a few other sources. Hey, Louise, Christopher, Jilly, Dennis, Gene. Yeah, I know I said I wasn't going to do this, but we are. I just said, why not? Welcome to the John title card. Nice, Jim. Hey, Jay Pierce. How you doing, everybody? Don't forget, tonight we'll have a, We the People with Mike McCabe. Mike McCabe has some insane numbers on his We the People. I've never seen anything like it. He's a popular person running for Wisconsin governor. Yeah, I know, Darcy. No Facebook, no TYT, no streams anywhere. Reminds me of somebody, well, it's Bernie Sanders. Reminds me of when he was getting blacked out doing rallies. Got 33 people watching. How you doing all? Bernie's is online now? Oh, yeah, they got it back. All right, here we go. Get that going here for you.
I want to pay you overtime, and after 2 weeks, I still don't have enough. I'm at $12.50, and that's, you know, it's a good amount, but I still can't. And that's the whole reason why I started, you know, being a part of the
Oh, it's going to be one of these.
campaign with the 5 for 15, and we need protection. We need that union.
Thanks, Christopher. I appreciate that. I believe we will prevail, maybe two. I'm more worried about climate change than anything, even the Russians.
It's hard living and coming together. In numbers, we have changed so much just at my store and also nationwide with the 5 for 15, and it feels good. It really does. And to have people like, you know, coming together and sharing to the world what we go through so that people understand and see what these CEOs are making, where are they at? How come they're not telling their stories?
Well, on that note, let me mention, I guess they didn't show up, I don't know, but, and I can understand why the CEOs did not show up. And we made it very sincere, really was sincere. Effort, because I think it would have been an extraordinary discussion for them to defend the profits of their companies, the kinds of unbelievable compensation they get, in contrast to the lives of the people who work for them. We did make that offer. None of them showed up. Adriana, let me just mention to you, as you know, McDonald's last year made over $5 billion.
Okay, if you guys say it's working better on TYT or Bernie's YouTube, I'll go there. Give me 1 second. I'll pull that up.
In profit. Its CEO, Steve Easterbrook, made more than $21 million. All right, anything else, Adriana, that you $1 million in compensation last year?
So far, no.
Now, as our next panelist is Cynthia Murray, and Cynthia works also for one of the largest corporations in this country, a corporation that is owned by the Walton family, the wealthiest family in America. Cynthia, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Thank you. My name is Cynthia Murray. I am excited to be here tonight. I'm a founding member of our Walmart organization, and I've been with Walmart 18 years. So for me, it's very personal. I started at Walmart in 2000. 5 years after I was there, I seen a decline in how they treated workers, screaming at us in the aisles, No respect at all for us. So one day a young girl came by me, and she was in tears, broken. She quit that day. She told me they were coming for me. And all I could do was say to myself is, what did I do? Well, she was right. The next day they took me in the office with 3 managers in there and just me. And the manager told me, she said, you're going to do what I tell you to do. And I said, well, I do that. And so she had a folder in her hand. I was an injured worker. That's what led me to work for Walmart in the first place. She threw the folder across the table at me. There was nothing in it. And I made a remark to her, and I said, well, I can have my attorney fax my medical records to you. And she said to me, are you threatening me? And I was like, no. You know, I said, but this is over. This isn't the way I was raised, and I don't believe that anybody in the workforce should be treated in that manner whatsoever. That day I decided that things were going to change, and I was going to stand for respect for every worker in our company and all workers. Walmart told us that it was only my store from across the country. We then found out that what they were saying to us wasn't true. They were treating each and every one of us the same manner, disrespecting us. So we decided to do something about that. We joined together. We made an organization, and we said enough is enough. They pride themselves on low wages, on paying their workers low wages. Meanwhile, we don't even make the poverty level. So from that time forward, we decided that we would also march for 15 and full time. When you come in our Walmart doors now, you start at $11 an hour. That's well and fine. That's still not enough. But the longtime associates that are there have not even got a raise for a cost of living, which, as you know, I don't make $15 an hour, and I've been there 18 years. There's something wrong with that in our country.
Okay. Cynthia, a lot of employees, as I understand it, work fewer than 40 hours a week at Walmart. Why is that?
Well, Walmart figures that the more that they have part-time workers, that it's cheaper work for them. We don't get many benefits anymore. They took most of those away. But the turnover rate is high in all the Walmart stores across the country. Once a worker comes in and they see what it is to work there, they leave. We're understaffed, overworked, and they disrespect us. And so these are some of the problems that we have now in our stores across the country. It's not just happening in one store. And we thought, what better way to do things than to join hands with all retail workers and other workers. And so we built an organization called Our Walmart. And so now we have that we would like each and everybody.
Cynthia, let me ask you this. If people are paid wages that are really pretty unlivable, how do they survive in terms of health care, in terms of getting the food they need? Are many of your coworkers?
Bernie, almost the majority of them. They offer us health care, but it's unaffordable for them. So most of them are on Medicare, food stamps, and public housing. That's the only way that they can make it. A lot of them have to go to the food banks. Workers to put in food to feed the other workers. Don't get me wrong. We as Walmart workers across the country, we take care of each other. If one needs something, we give it to the other. But for them to do that, and they're one of the richest companies in the world, come on, let's get.
So when you stop and you think about it, here is a company owned by the Walton family, which is the wealthiest family in this country. And we as taxpayers have got to subsidize the employees who work for this company owned by the wealthiest family in a country. Man, this is an issue that this country is going to have to deal with. But I thank you very much, Cynthia, for all that you're doing. Our next panelist is Artemis Bell. And Artemis also works for one of the largest, most profitable corporations in America, and that's Disney. And she works for that beautiful resort. Is Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse. What's really going on?
Fragments brought to you by corporate-controlled media and internet and bandwidth and infrastructure. Sorry, everybody. I don't know that it's any better anywhere else.
You making after 7 years of work?
$11.86.
Okay. And tell me about Anaheim and Orange County, California. That is a pretty expensive place to live, right?
Yes, yes.
How do people live on $11.80 an hour?
We don't really. On $11.86, plus I get a third shift differential, so I make just barely $12.50 after everything's put together. It's barely $1 more than a new hire makes now, but for a lot of my coworkers, they've been living in their cars. A lot of people have lost their homes and they're living in motels. I've been holding on.
I'm going to interrupt you because something comes to my mind here.
Okay.
I was told, and I don't know if it's accurate, tell me if it is, that there was a tent city where workers were living in tents near Disneyland. Is that true? Does that ring a bell?
Well, there was a tent city. It was a part of the homeless issue in Orange County as a whole, and I do understand that there were Disneyland workers living there.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, the homeless issue in Orange County has made me even more afraid to lose my apartment because there's no resources if you need help. I hold on to my apartment by the skin of my nails as best I can by having roommates, but that's very difficult on us because everybody's kind of in the same boat I am. We all barely make enough. I have a 2-bedroom apartment, and there have been times when we've had a roommate in the living room. We just barely make it, even when we have more roommates than we have bedrooms. And it's very difficult when you've got a roommate who just moves out without any notice, and then all of a sudden you have to scrape together the extra money to cover that roommate's rent. They're my choices to keep my housing at all costs because I don't want to deal with the homelessness in Orange County. I don't want to be the person dealing with it.
Do you know people who are working at Disneyland who are really sleeping in their cars?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I've known people who are currently sleeping in their cars, and about a year and a half ago, a cast member from my shift actually passed away in her car, and she was so embarrassed that nobody knew she was living in her car, and when she just disappeared, people were searching for her. They were looking at the last address that they had for her, and she wasn't there. People said she hadn't lived there for a long time. The company made no effort to look for her. This was a cast member who had, she never called out. She was always doing 6 days, and she'd worked for the company for about 10 years, I think, and she was just gone, and the company just wrote her off because she stopped showing up to work, and it was because of the diligent work of the other cast members calling her family and calling the police and everything that they could think of that we were eventually alerted when she was found passed away in her car. But the company did nothing to help us find her, and the company continues to do very little to help us get to a wage where we don't have to live in our car or worry about living in our car.
And I think it's worth noting that the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, signed the contract recently for, what is it, $423 million over a 4-year period?
Yes.
So this is a company that makes billions in profits, can provide a $423 million compensation package, but you got people who are working there. And you know, it's ironic about Disney, this is supposed to be the place, it's a happy land, right? You're supposed to be making people feel good in fantasy world, and yet many of the workers there are really just struggling economically. And I've also heard, and again, this is one of the most expensive places in the world to live, Orange County, California, that people sometimes have difficulty putting food on the table and feeding themselves. Have you heard stories about that?
Yes, I've heard quite a few stories of that. I know a lot of people who have to go to food banks. I've gone to food banks myself. I try to make food a priority for myself because I was always taught that that's like the foundation to your health. Right. And my family has some health issues that I don't want to have to deal with. And so I always make sure to feed myself, but that means that I'm cutting into other bills that I could be paying with that money.
What about health care? Do people have decent health insurance who work at Disney?
The health care is okay, but because our wages are so low, it is difficult for us to use it. About a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I got very, very sick. And I'm prone to sinus infection, so I thought I could deal with it, and I didn't go to the doctor right away. But after more than a week of being sick, I realized that this was something out of the ordinary, and I went to the doctor. My doctor was very mad at me for not coming sooner because it turned out I had pneumonia. After paying my copay and after paying for the prescriptions that I was prescribed, I didn't have any money left at all. So all I had in my cupboard at the time, I think, was spaghetti and tomato sauce, and I lived on that for 3 weeks because I didn't have any money for food after that.
You know, we're hearing from workers tonight, and people may be watching this and they say, well, it's too bad we got 5 people up here, they're struggling. This is not 5 people. This is what is going on all over this country. These are the stories of tens and tens of millions of Americans. So Artemis, thank you very much for sharing your story. Now, Amazon is an unusual company, as all of you know. It's a company that is exploding in many areas, which is an issue unto itself. It's also a fairly secretive company in trying to figure out what's going on with their workforce. But what we do know is that the owner of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, I think as of today, is the wealthiest person in the country at $150 billion worth of personal wealth. But what we also know is that a significant percentage of workers who work for Amazon are working at wages so low that they are also dependent upon government programs. But that's only half the story, because a lot of people who work for Amazon don't really work for Amazon. They are independent contractors. They are hired by an independent body, and their wages, we believe, are even lower than Amazon's wages are. Seth King is a former Amazon employee. He is a veteran of the United States Navy. You served 8 years in the Navy, is that right, Seth?
Yes.
And you worked for... You worked in an Amazon warehouse in Chesterfield, Virginia. Seth, can you tell us a little bit about your experience at Amazon?
Hi, I'm Seth King. I'm a proud father of 2, ex-vet or ex-military. Coming into Amazon, I was pretty confident with optimistic about how the job was going to be. I knew that they paid a little bit better than what I was used to out in the job force, and they provided benefits and 401k, and pretty quickly, right off the bat, realized that it's a luxury to offer things like that when they burn people out so fast that nobody ever really gets a chance to use it. And that their model is basically, it's a revolving door of just bodies that they're throwing at the floor, you know. And so I would start a day, come into work, door stretches, and then it was 10 hours for 4 days straight, walking. You're not allowed to sit down. You're not allowed to talk to other people on the same aisles. If I was caught just conversing with people throughout the day as I was working, they would do something called a working party, where they would tell us all, this aisle all the way down for the rest of the warehouse, there's only allowed to be one person, and if you were caught talking to other people or interacting with other people, you'd get written up. And that was within the first week that I was seeing things like this. The first training day, we started with about 30 people, and by the fourth training day, there was only 8, because so many realized how quickly they just weren't cut for how physically demanding the job was. And I felt that pretty immediately, but I needed the money. I was working a second job as a security guard also, so on top of my 40 hours a week, I would spend 2 12-hour shifts right after working at a security post. And I could have worked a third day. I probably could have used the money too for that, but I needed at least one day to rest. I was so physically exhausted. I would spend almost an entire day sleeping throughout the week. But the environment is just, it's very isolating. It's depressing. I was spending an hour driving to work, 10 hours on the floor, and then the whole time I was there, there's no windows, there's no, you're tracked every second of the day. Every second that you're out there not being productive, somebody's watching you to make sure that you are still on task. And they have a number, there's like a rate that you're supposed to reach for whether you're stowing or taking items off the shelf, whatever your job was for the day. And my entire, even though it was just a 2-month stint there, I was spent, even days where I thought I was doing really well, I'd come up at the end of the day about 20% short of their expected goal. It just always felt unattainable. So you're just day to day struggling to hopefully not get fired. You're putting in 100%, and you're coming out of it without to show for it. So even through all of that, I was still struggling to make ends meet, living paycheck to paycheck for both jobs. And there was, it's really personal, and up here on the mic it's kind of hard to talk about, but there was a point in my life where when I was working there, towards the end of the time I was there, I was so depressed, and I kept telling myself, if this is the best my life is going to get, why am I even still here? And I would leave in such a horrible emotional state that I'd have to leave because I couldn't physically be there anymore. And I finally, the second time that I had broke down crying and left work because of it, I called one of my best friends, and she told me, if working there really makes you feel like this, if you feel like taking your own life because of the job you're working at, don't work there. That is not there's no work environment that should make you feel like that. And so I left, and thank you.
And this is a company owned by a person whose wealth increases $275 million every single day. $275 million increase in wealth every single day. And those are the kinds of conditions that workers are living under who work for Mr. Bezos. Ironically, as we speak here, as I understand it, there is now a strike going on in Europe. Demanding decent working conditions. But as we hear, we're going to get to Heather in a second. It's a little bit different story. But as we hear these stories, it speaks to the culture, incredible culture of greed in this country. I mean, Seth talked about it, and Adriana talked about it, is people in a sense are disposable. So we work somebody to a point of no return, and then we get rid of them, we bring somebody else in. It is not a culture where people are respected, who are part of a team, who are nourished, nurtured. It is, thank you, we got as much as we could out of you, you're exhausted, goodbye. We got somebody else who will come in. And we have to ask ourselves a very fundamental question as to whether or not that is the kind of country and the kind of economic culture that we are comfortable with. And I think most Americans are not. And now I want to welcome to the panel Heather Hudson. And Heather works for a subsidiary, a fully owned subsidiary, as I understand it, of American Airlines, and that is Piedmont Air. And Heather is a proud member of the Communications Workers of America.
Hello. My name is Heather Hudson, and I work for American Airlines, wholly owned carrier Piedmont Airlines, for 11 years. I'd like to thank Senator Sanders for giving me this opportunity to speak today at this town hall. My story and the stories that you heard from the other panelists are not unique to us. Millions of Americans across this country are going through the same struggles just to make ends meet. And we all work full-time for major corporations making poverty wages. We are being paid these poverty wages even though we make these businesses successful. When I started at American, at Piedmont Airlines in Charlotte, North Carolina, 10 years ago, I earned less than $8 an hour. At that time, I was married, and I really wasn't worried about the wages. I was more worried about the flight benefits. So me and my husband and my 4 children can go places that we never expected we would be able to go. Now that I'm separated and a single mother of 4, I rely solely on my paycheck to take care of my family. My current salary after a decade working for Piedmont is less than $14.50 an hour. I cannot make ends meet on my own without working extra hours. And on those days, I work 12-hour days. Even with this additional time, I qualify for food stamps and my children receive Medicaid. I've been getting the support for the past 5 years. You will never understand how humiliating it is to be at the social service office in line with your coworkers. It shouldn't be this way. The starting wage at Piedmont Airlines right now is $8.50 an hour. I have coworkers who work double shifts every single day. That is from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. because they're not earning enough to take care of their own families. Some of my coworkers work second jobs at fast food restaurants just because they make more per hour than we do. Being a single mom, I don't have the time to work doubles every day. I struggle every month to pay my rent and other expenses. I have 3 children in college and one 2 years from college. My 26-year-old son, Devin, helps me financially. This is not the way it's supposed to be. And those flight benefits that I was so excited about at the beginning of my career, they don't even matter as much anymore. I have to take care of my kids now. So you ask, why do I stay? I stay because I love my job. I love my coworkers. I enjoy my passengers sometimes. But my job is not easy. We're on the tarmac. In Charlotte, North Carolina, if you've ever flown through, we board you on the tarmac, and we are out there with you with umbrellas. We're out there in the heat, 90, 100-degree weather.
Okay. Just the back of my chair.
We are Americans' frontline workers who are expected to project a positive image and provide a smile. We work hard for our company and we deserve more. That's why we're here fighting for a living wage and fair contracts for over 9,000 passenger service agents just like me. We service flights for American Airlines carriers Piedmont and Envoy. For me, the most disturbing fact of all of this is that we work for a company that is tremendously successful. American Airlines made $1.9 billion last year. Our CEO, Doug Parker, has said he believes American will never lose money. Is American using this money to support its frontline workers in Piedmont or Envoy? The answer is no. Recently, the company lobbied for more corporate tax cuts and announced plans to use $2 billion of their profits to buy back stock through 2020. At the end of the day, I believe it's time for this company to share those profits with us, the workers, who are key to their success. I and the other workers should not have to work extra hours. We should not have to get other jobs just to make ends meet. My oldest son should not have to be taking care of me and his siblings. My son, who is 2 years away from college, should not have to worry about financial fears to go to college. It's time for American Airlines to increase our pay. I thank you, Senator Sanders, for letting me tell my story and believing in that the workers like me deserve a living wage and fair contracts. Thank you.
Heather, you have, I travel a lot, so I see you and your colleagues all over the country. It's a tough job. It's a job in which if a flight is canceled, and I was on a flight last night that was canceled, people get angry and they miss job interviews and they miss funerals and they miss weddings. What kind of stress do you and your coworkers work under those conditions?
Well, Bernie, I've been there for 11 years. So I have gone through a lot. We have a very stressful job. It was a time in my career where I used to dream about boarding aircrafts and seeing them push back, because we're so stressed on time. We have to get these planes out on time. We have to make sure that things are done properly. And so it's a very stressful job.
Heather, if somebody were to walk into Piedmont tomorrow applying for a job in Charlotte, what kind of wages would that person get, do you think?
$8.50.
$8.50.
Mm-hmm.
And you have been there for 10 years?
11
years. You're now making?
$14.37.
And despite working long hours, you have to depend upon food stamps to feed your family?
I do.
And this is what it's all about. Somebody who works hard. It is a stressful job, year after year after year, and you and your coworkers have to walk into offices to get food stamps because the company that made $1.9 billion last year apparently doesn't have enough money to pay you and your colleagues a living wage. Okay, and that is an outrage. And with that, let's go to another video that I think we have on deck here.
The only way that I can see to deploy this much financial resource is by converting my Amazon winnings into space travel.
The fact that he wants to spend his billions on going into space is absolutely ridiculous and laughable.
From January 1st through May 1st of this year, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, saw his wealth increase by $275 million every single day. Saw his wealth increase by
Doug McMillan earned $22.8 million during the retailer's last fiscal year.
Say they're just being rewarded for a job right now.
Doug McMillan earned
He's the company's co-chairman and CEO, raking in over $36 million last year. He's the company's co-chairman and CEO, raking in over $36 million last year alone.
4 of the Waltons made $12.7 billion in one day.
The boss of McDonald's, Steve Easterbrook, is reported to have earned £11.8 million last year.
He was just handed a 94% pay raise last year, making over $15 million in total compensation.
Mr. Easterbrook makes $9,200
and financial planning.
Bezos has a lake house in Washington State worth $25 million, a Beverly Hills estate worth $25 million, and a trio of New York City apartments on Central Park West worth $17 million. Rob Walton's collection of vintage sports cars, $23 million in cash for the largest private home in Washington, D.C.
Asher B. Duran's Kindred Spirits for a reported $35 million.
$12 million renovation.
$100 million in stock.
25 bathrooms.
So much money here.
I don't begrudge what he's making, but don't forget who you've built that company off of.
I'm at a loss for words that a company, a $1 trillion company, a man that has a ballroom in his home, somebody that has 2, 3, 4 mansions. Look what I'm moving out of. See this?
I think the mass accumulation of wealth from Bezos is a symptom of a broken system.
They are hoarding wealth, and they're stagnating this economy, and it's time for a change.
So we are looking at a world in which people, handful of people, have wealth beyond human imagination, and the people who help them create that wealth are struggling every single day and are dependent upon government programs in order to feed themselves and their children. And meanwhile, because of a corrupt campaign finance system, these people and their friends are creating a political climate which not only does not address these problems, but gives more tax breaks and other benefits to the people on top. It is worth mentioning that last year, Amazon reported some $5.5 billion in U.S. profits, but somehow or another they got away without paying a nickel in federal income taxes. And Trump's tax plan will provide Amazon with a $789 million tax giveaway. If this were not so pathetic, it really would be laughable. The idea that multi-billionaires get huge tax breaks, live in incredible mansions, and their workers are struggling to keep their heads above water. Let's talk now about where we go from here. All right, we've talked about the problems, and you all have been incredibly articulate about what you and your coworkers are going through. Let's talk about an agenda now that makes sense to working people in this country, that will improve lives, not just for Jeff Bezos, who has to worry about what he's going to do with his next $50 billion, but maybe start dealing with the problems that ordinary Americans face. All right, many of us are fighting. I want to thank Good Jobs Nation for their work in this area. We are fighting. We are fighting for a minimum wage, which says that in the United States of America, if you work 40 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. you should be earning at least $15 an hour. All right? Adriana or anybody else, why does that make sense?
I think it makes sense because I'm over here busting my butt at McDonald's, working for 3 people, and I'm still making the wage of 1 person. And I'm sorry, but that video really got me mad because I'm not asking for a mansion. I'm not asking for a lake house. All I'm asking is to be able to provide better for my son. And I'm working, and I don't want to depend on the government. Why should I depend on the government? McDonald's has billions in profit. I'm not asking for a freaking private jet. If I'm busting my butt, I don't want to ask anybody for anything, especially not the government. Why? Because taxpayers are subsidizing that. And that's what people don't understand. I want to be able to provide for my son by myself. And I feel like $15 an hour is a start because we're already in a hole. We're trying to climb out. We need protection. We need the union so they can give us $20 an hour and then cut our hours. We need that union. We need protection. We need our voices to be heard because people are scared. People in my store are scared. Older Mexican ladies, they are terrified. And that's why I feel like I need to be there to protect them, to let them know what's going on, to let them know that they should not be treated that way, and the wages that we're making, they should be way higher.
Let me ask the panel. Emergency, all right? That means a broken car, right? It means your kid getting sick. It means you're getting evicted and having to come up with a deposit for a new apartment, right? 40% of the American people do not have $400 available to deal with that emergency. They would have to go out and borrow that money, maybe from a payday lender who would charge them some exorbitant interest rates. All right, what about that? What about raising the minimum wage? What does it mean to live under that kind of stress? All right? If your car broke down, what does it mean? What happens?
I wouldn't be able to get to work. I wouldn't be able
And what happens if you don't get to work?
I wouldn't be able to feed my family. I would lose my apartment. I would lose everything. And I would have to borrow. I would have to borrow. I would have to go to friends. I wouldn't know what to do. Honestly, I wouldn't know what to do.
Okay, Cynthia or Artemis, what happens? I mean, you know, in this world today, $400 is not a lot of money. All right, cars break down every day. People get ill every single day. People get evicted from their homes every single day. What does it mean? What kind of stress are people living under who are making the kinds of wages that you guys are making? Yeah, Artemis?
Well, for me, it wasn't a car, but I've actually dealt with something like that before when I've had roommates move out with no notice and their rent was about $400. All of a sudden, I had to come up with that $400.
Who charges you? Do you know what kind of interest rates they charge you?
They charge something like 300% interest rates.
All right. This is why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. You got vultures out of there who are stealing money from desperate poor people who need to come up, in this case, with a few bucks in order to keep a roof over their heads. All right. What else? Who else wants to comment on it? Yes.
I will. So we see it every day, you know, not even $400. It can be $20 to see them through the week just to get back and forth to work. And, you know, I've seen workers walking. I mean, by the time they get to work, they've walked so far and so long that they can't even work. And if they do, you're like, what happened to you? And they're like, I had no money for a bus. You know, they're already taking a bus 2 hours one way. You know, and not to have enough money in your pocket to even get on that bus on a day that it's raining or ice and snow. Imagine that. And then, you know, they have nothing to eat, no lunch. And then they say to me, you know, I got to go home today and I can't even feed my child. Can you imagine? We live in the U.S. and these people keep getting richer and richer. And so just one thing, $20. Now Walmart says they got a loan. You can take a loan out on your check. We'll give you something out of your check. But the moment you do it, you're going to get charged $6 every month, whether you use it or not. Now that's just like a payday loan to me. That's $6. People say $6. Ask one of our workers what $6 can do for them. And they'll tell you, that's 2 days to go back and forth to work. That might be a dinner for my child. So that's wrong too.
Seth? There are a lot of doctors and psychologists who will tell you that stress is one of the most serious health issues that we face. That people every single day are dealing with stress in a dozen different ways. Anybody want to talk a little bit? You did. I know, Adriana, we were upstairs. You were talking about stress, and Seth, you certainly were talking about what it did to you physically and mentally on your job. But Adriana, what kind of stress level are you under where you work?
Oh man, stress balls right here, stress ball right here. At work, you're constantly under pressure. We have a certain amount of time to do everything. Everything has to be done under 90 seconds.
Say that again.
Everything has to be done under 90 seconds. So that's taking the order, which sometimes people take longer than that. That's making the burger, the fries, the drink. So it's constant yelling, constant belittling you, making you feel like you're less than human. It's horrible. I don't even know another word to explain it, because you're constantly stressed at work. And you don't see a way out.
Okay. Further discussion on that? Anyone want to add to that?
Well, I mean, with my job, I've been fairly lucky. I don't stress at work, but I stress because of the circumstances that my pay has created. And because I work third shift custodial, I have a very different sleep schedule than most people. And life doesn't always work with that schedule. Try going to class at 2 o'clock in the morning and you'll understand what it's like for me to go to class at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and just to not sleep. It wears you down so that you can't handle the stress when you have it. And because of the stress that I had to deal with from trying to do everything and go to school and go to work and now have a second job, I ended up taking a 2-year hiatus from school, which I was only planning to have that be about a semester. But it turned into 2 years because for the longest time, every time I thought about the added stress of going back to school, I couldn't handle it, and I would cry, and I would just not sign up again that semester.
Right, let me ask you another question. We've talked about a minimum wage of at least $15 an hour and what that might mean. What about healthcare? What about the anxieties over healthcare? If I said to you that right now, in the last poll that I saw, and everybody should know this, 63% of the American people now believe that we should have a Medicare for all single-payer program. Now, we have a president who wanted to throw 32 million people off of health care. We have a president whose budget would have called for a $1 trillion cut in Medicaid and $500 billion in Medicare over a 10-year period. What would it mean to your lives if you had what workers in every other major country on earth had? And that is, you had a little card which allowed you and your kids to go to the doctor anytime you wanted without any co-payment, without any deductible, and for lower income workers, prescription drugs would be virtually free. What would that mean for any of you?
Well, I think that would mean lifting a burden off of our back. I have, and I pay for health care every pay period, and I have to go to the doctors, and I don't because I can't afford the co-payments. I mean, there's
How much are your co-payments?
My co-payments are $90.
Every time you go to the doctor's office?
Every time I go to the doctor.
Everybody hear that?
And that's not the money that I spend every pay period to pay for that insurance.
In other words, she has insurance that you are paying for, but it's an insurance that in many cases you can't use because the co-payment is so high. And that is, you know, so when we talk in America, we say, well, we got 30 million people who have zero health insurance. That's bad. But you got a whole lot of people in exactly Cynthia's position. They have health insurance. They don't use it because the deductibles and the co-payments are so high. All right, anybody else? Adriana, what would we need to you if you and your son guaranteed health care?
I think it would mean a healthier America, not just me. You know, people would get their yearly checkups like we're supposed to. You know, their dentist every, 6 months, I believe. It would just mean, but you would take care of yourself. You would maybe feel better. And it'd be incredible.
Okay, let me, again, I don't want to be too radical and suggest that maybe the United States of America might want to do what virtually, you know, every other country, major country on earth is doing. But what would it mean, do you think, to your lives and the lives of your co-workers if we had 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave? What would it mean to you that you could take time off of work, that when your kid got sick, you wouldn't have to worry about losing your job or losing wages? What is that about? What impact would that have in your lives? Heather, you want to jump into that one?
Sure. That would take a lot of stress off of me, especially being a mother of 4 children.
What happens now when your kids get sick?
Well, with my company, we have a point system. So if you call out for one day, you get 3 points. The next day is 4.
You get points for being sick?
Yes, you get points for being sick.
You're penalized for being sick?
Yes. So it's more or less, if you're sick less than 7 days, you get penalized. After the 7 days, you don't get penalized with a doctor's note. But not many of us can afford to be out 7 days of work. We don't get paid. So a lot of us will come into work sick, and which we work for our airline, which is, we could get all of you sick. So at the end of the day, we ended up in trouble.
Speaking of coming to work when you should not be coming to work, Adriana, what about McDonald's and sick time?
Oh, we do not have any sick days. So I'm most likely going to come into work sick because I can't afford to lose a day. So I'm working with food. Like she said, I'm probably going to get some of you guys sick. He yelled at me saying that I get him sick. So yeah, it's hard when you don't have any paid sick days. So if my son gets sick, I can take him to the doctor and they'll accept the doctor's note, but I still lost a day of wage.
All right, let's just take a deep breath and recognize how crazy this is. She deals with food every single day, right? Hundreds of people coming in and out. And I presume there are days there are people who are sick who are handling that food. I mean, what can we say? And you deal with people who are going all over the world, right? And if somebody has something that's contagious, that person will take it all over the country. Okay. On that cheerful note, let's go to another video. While the rich are becoming much richer, we're seeing mom working and dad working, kids working incredible hours, and they still don't have enough money for basic family needs. And what we are saying today is that is going to change.
Be able to earn a living wage, not struggle with our everyday bills and rent, to know that we will be able to put food on our table at the end of the night.
If I was making $15 an hour, I've been able to get up out of the shelter and get on my feet and get my own apartment.
Investing in associates means letting us take care of our children when they are sick and accepting our doctor notes. Investing in associates means giving associates set schedules so we can plan our lives and be there for our families.
Corporate America understands that when workers become organized, when workers are able to engage in collective bargaining, they end up with far better wages and benefits than non-union workers.
A union would offer me protections at work that I do not have now.
Bring the minimum wage to $15 in the union, that's going to be a big change of boost.
My message to Disney and to our CEO, we deserve the same magic back. Disney can afford it, and your cast deserves it.
Jeff Bezos should be a model for how to treat our employees and give people a leg up.
This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. It is not a radical idea to say that if you work 40 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. It is not a radical idea that in America we join the rest of the world with paid family and medical leave. When millions of us stand together, we are going to win. Nobody is going to stop us.
And actually, that's true, because that is exactly what is happening all across this country. Now, if we were here 5 years ago, and I got up here, and I said, you know, I think we should raise the federal minimum wage from the starvation wage of $7.25 now, which is what it is right now, to $15 an hour. People would have said we were crazy, right? But you know what? All across the country, because of the wonderful work done by these, stand up, Good Jobs Nation, stand up, guys. Because of the great work done by them and by other organizations, an idea that seemed radical 5 years ago is no longer radical today. And not only do we have more and more co-sponsors on legislation that I've offered here in the Senate, is offered in the House, but what you are seeing are states and cities all across this country now passing legislation guaranteeing $15 an hour. And you know why they are doing it? They are doing it for all the reasons these guys talked about, and because the American people think that that makes sense. Let me throw it open to you guys. Talk to me. I know by definition you would not be here if you were not active, if you were not thinking about these issues. How do your coworkers, not every coworker, responds to what you are going through the same way. What are some of your coworkers thinking? What are their attitudes? Are they hopeful? Do they think we can make change? Who wants to talk about that? What's going on in the minds of some of your coworkers?
So I'll start. At my job, like I said, a lot of people are scared. They don't quite fully understand what a union is, so they just think, oh, union, they're gonna just take my money. And so I try to explain it to them, like, no, you work out a contract, you get paid sick days, you'll get vacation. Like, we don't have vacation. What's a vacation? So they'll be like, oh, okay. Well, I think it's more of trying to make them understand. And when they get frustrated, then that's when they'll come to you, and that's how I started my whole 515 thing.
Cynthia, what about workers in Walmart? Are they prepared to fight back, do you think?
Oh, yes. Walmart workers are prepared to fight back across the country. Our organization, we've joined hands across the country, and we're trying to change the way that the conditions are in our company. And especially 15 an hour, and that's low. We all know that if we had still continued with the minimum wage, it would be like $21.50 right now an hour. So we are way below that. And it has to change. And the only way that we can change that is if we all continue to join hands and stand up across the country. We need Walmart to continue to start giving these workers full-time hours. What can I do with 1 day a week at $15 an hour? Nothing. So we are going to continue to stand for 15 full-time schedules, and we want harassment to stop for all workers across the country.
Artemis, how are the workers feeling in Disneyland?
I think overall we have more fire in us this contract negotiation than we've had in a long time. A lot of my coworkers have looked at Disney as like a Goliath that they couldn't even be a David to for a very long time. But over this past contract negotiation, which has been going on for about 6 to 8 months now, or well, the negotiation's been going on for 2 months, and we've been preparing for it for 6 months. We've gotten more support, and we've gotten more fire out of the members than I've seen in a very long time. We have a hunger strike coming up next week, starting the 24th, I believe, on a Tuesday for 4 days. And since I announced that I'll be doing that with a few other members, we've gotten so much support. We have annual pass holders who are going to sit with us for at least 1 day in solidarity and fast with us. And it's just, we've come together in a way that we haven't seen in a long time.
And you all... You guys have worked on a ballot item for Anaheim. Can you say a word about that one?
There is a living wage initiative right now that's being pushed by a coalition of unions that my union is a part of. It starts at $15. If it were to pass in November, it would start at $15 in January of 2019, and over 4 years work its way up to a living wage in Orange County, which is about $18 an hour.
Now, what's interesting about Anaheim, it's not just that Disney and the other big companies there get federal tax breaks. They also have managed to get enormous tax breaks from the city itself. Is that right?
From what I understand, over the last 10 years, they've gotten roughly $1 billion in tax breaks, and they managed to get a tax. They managed to stop a gate tax from being passed that would have brought in about $1 billion over the next 30 years, I think it is. My numbers might be a little off, but it's close to that. That would have put money into the city for over 30 years, and instead that $1 billion is going to build Star Wars Land, which they were gonna build whether they got that tax break or not. And they create these tax breaks so that they can create jobs, good paying jobs. And while the construction jobs that they create are good paying jobs, those jobs last for a certain amount of time, and then it's the jobs like mine, the low wage jobs that are long-term jobs, and the low wage cast members like myself, we are the ones who live in the community or want to live in the community, and we can't afford to live. We might be renting a room or an apartment, but we're not living in the community right now.
Seth, did you want to add to that discussion? What was your impression of the consciousness of workers at Amazon where you were there?
My impression is that, kind of mimicking something that was said earlier, is that we're not an isolated incident. And while my story, I had the luxury of a second job so I could quit to afford myself, the mental health break that I needed. There are people who their livelihood is hanging off of working at Amazon and spending all of their time at Amazon. And I'm a semi-young and able-bodied person. I'm pretty active. So for it to be as physically demanding as it was to me, imagine what it's like for some 40, 50-year-old person who is starting off there like I was for the same wages. And there was this woman I remember, the first or second week after I started working there, who she was probably in her mid to late 40s, every week there was some new brace she was wearing, a wrist brace, an elbow brace, knee brace, ankle brace, until eventually she just stopped showing up. So I know that there are more people out there who feel the exhaustion that I felt and feel like the pay is not only not worth it, but the culture of the environment of working there is it's to use you until you're no longer necessary. So,
Heather, what about the airline industry and American Airlines and your coworkers? Pardon me?
Considering the union?
Yeah, I mean, how are they feeling about things, and what does the union mean to them, and so forth?
Well, we're a new union, so we are I live in a state where unions are not normal. Where I'm from New Jersey. I was born, raised in a union household. So a lot of my coworkers don't know what to expect. But at this point, the CWA, the Communication Workers of America, have done us justice. They support us, and they make sure that our company makes sure that we're safe and promote affordable health care and our living wages. So I'm very pleased with our union.
Okay. I think what we have heard tonight, and let me say it again for the umpteenth time, is we have 5 people up here, but they are really speaking for tens of millions of people. And these are tens of millions of people who in many cases have given up hope. Our life expectancy as a nation is actually going down. These are people who are living in lives that are incredibly stressful. They're angry at themselves because they're not doing justice by their children. And they probably worry more about their kids than they do about themselves. They worry that they're working day after day and they're thinking about their retirement and they have no money in the bank to have a decent retirement. Significant numbers of people, when they retire, have nothing. They're dependent on. If we were sitting here and saying, you know, we're a poor nation, and that's the way it is, everybody works very hard and nobody makes a lot of money, I think people could deal with that. But when you see that video, when you see Bezos worrying about, you know, which, you know, is his multi-zillion-dollar homes and what he's going to do with $150 billion, people understand in their guts that that is just not right and not what this country is supposed to be about. So I think and the good news is that I think all over the country we are seeing people standing up and fighting back, and it's not just the fight for 15, it's the fight for universal health care. All of you have seen recently teachers in conservative states standing up and saying, we demand a decent education for our kids in states like West Virginia, in Oklahoma, and in other conservative states. You are seeing young people who experience the most unimaginable tragedy that anyone could even think of in Parkland High School a number of months ago. And I don't even want to talk about it because it is so unspeakable what they went through. And their response was not simply to get depressed or to mourn, but to fight back for sensible gun safety legislation. And we're seeing people running for office, people getting involved in all kinds of ways that we have not seen for a very, very long time. So I just want to conclude by, number one, thanking ACT TV for helping us produce tonight's program, but more importantly, thanking all of you for your... thanking you for what you are doing and for your willingness to share your story with the American people. Thank you. And thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. These guys are something else, aren't they?
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. That was the end of that. And actually, if you go back and watch the live stream from anybody else, they might have caught the audio in there where you hear Bernie, he really cute, says, "Okay, are we done? Thank you." So anyway, thank you all for being here. 47 people watching, 235 playbacks. Please share this. Get this message out. You are the purveyors of independent media. This is not going to be carried or talked about on any of the MSM channels. And we definitely have a problem with getting our message out, right? So anyway, I thought I'd end. Here, there's the Windows screen. I'm going to end with Feel the Burn, Tony Tigg. See everybody, if you can join us. Join us tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific. We have Mike McCabe. He's running for governor of Wisconsin. He's an amazing guy. He's got some of the most incredible stats on a We the People I've ever seen. Go look at his We the People from 2017. Everything he said, we're going to talk about tonight. It's just an amazing guy. He's running in an interesting field, the Democrats, and let's talk about him tonight. Join us. Share that if you can. This is how we make progress, by supporting and electing progressives. Tony Tigg, Feel the Burn. I think we all know Bernie's going to run, right? We all know he's going to run.
Any other major country on earth, a nation in which the wealthiest people are becoming phenomenally rich, while we have over 40 million people living in poverty. The very least that we can say is that nobody in America goes.
The Pied Piper Bernie Sanders for the middle class. What a GOP wants to put our interests last. He's gonna give it to you raw, no hesitation. With the right ideas to lead this great nation. No handouts, no special interest groups. He don't lie to give votes, he's telling you the truth. And while the media wants to downplay him, he's still gonna fight. Tell him all he ain't playing. Push him for higher wages so we all can feed our families. The only one I know who can conquer this insanity of this Wall Street bickering, belittling the poor. Dollar bills, only thing they considering. When people need health care, kids need school. When it comes to politics, Bernie's breaking rules. No attack gets on the competition's needed. He's running on the facts, and it's something that we needed. Feel the burn, make him feel the burn. All the way to the White House, feel the burn. Feel the burn, make him feel the burn. Till the haters on the right, they can feel the burn. Feel the burn, make him feel the burn. All the way to the White House, feel the burn. Feel the burn, make him feel the burn. Till the haters on the left, they can feel the burn. You see him scared shook, he's a democratic socialist, but they don't even know what it means, they just roll with it. Get over it, check the resume, fighting for civil rights ever since the first day. While other candidates still with their hands out, we do it old school, grassroots stand out. Cause this is our time to have a voice to serve. You fat cats had your chance, now it's our turn. They say he can't win, he's too liberal, way too extreme, too honest and too cynical. They want another robot politician, the same old rhetoric, now they gon' listen. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. All the way to the White House, feel the burn. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. Till the haters on the right, they can feel the burn. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. All the way to the White House, feel the burn. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. Till the haters on the left, they can feel the burn.
Millions and millions of working people who are working hard but are not making enough money to put bread on the table or to take care of their kids, and that has got to end. The time has come when people all over this country create a political movement which says to the billionaire class, you can't have it all.
Burn, make them feel the burn. All the way to the White House, feel the burn. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. Till the haters on the right, they can feel the burn. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. All the way to the White House, feel the burn. Feel the burn, make them feel the burn. Till the haters on the left, they can feel the